There are a lot of theories surrounding Rick and Morty, from Rick's origins to Morty's future. But why do fans care to examine the show in such depth? What is it about Rick and Morty that inspires such fervent dissection and analysis? The show's themes, harping on nihilism, absurdism, existentialism, and pretty much every other postmodern philosophy, may be right in line with people's current perspectives on reality. You have a lot of bitter and disillusioned foreign philosophers and authors pre-21st century to thank for that. But is there something more fundamentally familiar and appealing to Rick and Morty? Something from our ancient past? Something about the way our brains are working right now? There's a pretty popular theory popping up in some of your favorite shows that were all created somewhat recently. Shows from the likes of Mr. Robot to Westworld, and more subtly, Rick and Morty. It's the theory of the bicameral mind. The theory proposed by Julian Jaynes postulates that the human mind, starting 10,000 years ago, acted like a two-chambered system, where one side of the brain would be the leader and tell the other what to do with auditory hallucinations. Apparently, human beings literally had two different sides to them all the way up until roughly 2,800 years ago, when the advent of written language allowed them to start thinking metaphorically and develop something called metacognition, or the ability to think about your own thoughts. Westworld is all about the bicameral mind. The last episode in the first season was called The Bicameral Mind, and the theory is one of the central themes of the show.
He based it on a theory of consciousness called the bicameral mind.
The idea that primitive man believed his thoughts to be the voice of the gods.
One of the robots in the amusement park, Dolores, was created by a park designer, Arnold, to go on her or its own journey into consciousness. But before she can achieve self-awareness, she is, like the other robots in the park, subject to controls via programming and the auditory commands of the techs that work behind the scenes.
Step into analysis, please. How many interactions have you participated in since we last talked?
138 encounters, including this one.
A robot's whole existence in Westworld is based on the whims of their creators and designers. They are told what to do and carry it out. Meanwhile, in our past, according to the theory, the two sides of the brain didn't have as developed of a corpus callosum, the material that connects the two hemispheres together, as we do today.
Shit.
So one half would communicate independently of the other via auditory hallucination. Imagine a brain malfunction as huge as not even recognizing your thoughts as your own, just coming to you like a phone call.
Hello?
Then there's Mr. Robot, a show about a man with dissociative personality disorder who plans to erase a large portion of the American people's monetary debts through blowing up a corporate skyscraper. So Fight Club, but with hacking and more computer stuff. The twist at the end of Season 1 reveals that the protagonist, Elliot, is in fact hallucinating the leader of an underground resistance to corporate America, and is actually the leader himself. Oh, so Fight Club. Again. The second season deals with what side of Elliot is going to have control of his body, his alter ego, Mr. Robot, or himself. Mr. Robot is trying to exert dominance and take control, and Elliot is fighting back by trying to shed his hallucination, but nonetheless, coming to terms with the fact that his other self is a part of him.
You can't destroy a part of yourself.
How does this tie to the theory of bicameralism? Well, Joyce believed dissociative personality disorder to be a remnant of the bicameral mind. At one point, everyone on Earth, as a default, heard voices in order to think. Societies were formed when groups of people heard the same kind of voice, and when civilizations progressed into metacognition, the people who could still hear the voices were thought to be shamans, priests, or labeled insane.
Crazy.
The other group who considered their thoughts to be the voices of the gods.
Lunatics.
Indeed.
The voices heard ranged from dead people, such as village chiefs and parents, like Elliot hallucinating his dad, to archetypical gods. So now we come around to Rick and Morty. The way this show connects to bicameralism can be found in how it was conceived by the creators Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland. Harmon, in an interview with Animation Magazine, described Rick and Morty as two sides of the human brain. Morty is the side that is naive, immature, and always asking questions.
You ask a lot of questions, Morty. Not very charismatic. It makes you kind of the underfoot figure.
Rick is the other side, that is authoritative, selfish, and never apologizes for anything, because, of course, he's always right.
That's the difference between you and me. I'm certain, and you're a walking burlap sack filled with turds.
No, geez, Rick, you're really tearing into me right now.
Rick then, metaphorically, could be seen easily as the side of the brain that told the other what to do, and Morty could be seen as the submissive side that followed orders.
You're as dumb as I am smart, which is why when I say, shut up, it's really good advice.
Here's some evidence. In the episode Rest in Rick Laxation, Rick's toxic self says some very interesting things about what he considers to be the nature of his relationship with Morty.
If God exists, it's me. I control you. I control the universe.
I'm a god? I control you? Rick's negative self is exhibiting a lot of the same characteristics that made up the controlling side of the mind, considered to be a god found in bicameralism. And the notion of Rick being a god even makes sense from Morty's perspective.
I wanted you to have a normal life. That's something you can't have when Rick shows up. Everything real turns fake, everything right is wrong. All you know is that you know nothing and he knows everything. And, well, he's not a villain, Summer, but he shouldn't be your hero. He's more like a demon or a super f***ed up god.
Here's another one. Again in Rest in Rick Laxation, Rick says,
I'm a genius. I don't have time for this shit.
Genius, huh? The word genius is Latin, plural for genie, meaning special guardian spirit which protects one's moral character. This went on to mean someone's identifying character, then a marked aptitude, then what it came to mean today, a great intellectual power. How this connects to bicameralism is that after the advent of self-awareness around 3,000 years ago, the functionality of the brain that was the reason behind the voices that ran civilizations became the fodder to a lot of religions. The voice of the gods suddenly became the gods that existed in the heavens, or could only be heard by the divinely chosen like shamans and priests. The remnants of the bicameral era of thinking included a belief among the Romans that people, places, and objects possessed a divine nature. These divinities were prayed to in order to assure success in all sorts of endeavors. For people, a divine nature followed them all the days of their life as a guardian spirit, who came to be known as an individual's higher self responsible for their more advanced rational powers and abilities. For women, this was called their Juno, and for men, this was called, that's right, their genius. The side of the brain that controls the other in the bicameral mind morphed into the genius for the Romans, and Rick is the genius for Morty, aiding Morty along on their adventures, acting as a more advanced rational mind, and allowing him to perform in ways he couldn't without his assistance. The other show creator and voice of Rick and Morty is Justin Roiland, and how very appropriate to have two characters that are supposed to represent the two sides of the human brain be voiced by the same person. Maybe there's a little right brain talking to the left going on there. You know, like in bicameralism. This is what Justin says about the process of recording the voice of each character. I just get so inspired when I think about these two very different characters and how they relate to each other. When I'm in the booth doing these characters, as they talk to each other, my brain shuts off and it taps into something else. I think that's where the magic comes from. The way Rick and Morty riff back and forth. I just go crazy, and it's really fun. The right brain talks to the left brain and vice versa all the time in our day-to-day lives. The difference between the time of the bicameral mind and today, according to the theory, is not really a physical change in our brains, but more of a change in the way we understand the world. So, it is totally possible for Justin to tap into this right brain, left brain chatter. In the series, we can even see Rick's flying car as a metaphor for the human brain, Morty on one side and Rick on the other. From our perspective, Rick on the right and Morty on the left. Just like in the bicameral mind, where the right side of the brain would control the left. And Rick is even in the pilot seat, like how the right pilots the left. When Morty is driving, like in Morty Night Run, or making decisions in general, like in Look Who's Purging Now,
Help me save that girl, or I'm telling Mom you brought me here.
You little turd.
he usually gets in way over his head, being the pilot of his own life. Get it? And has to have Rick bail him out of trouble. Just like how the controlling right side would kick in and control the left during times of stress and high anxiety.
Screw you, Rick! I'll purge you too, you old rickety piece of crap! This has been a long time coming! I'm gonna rip your guts out and smear them all over your face! I ain't taking no shit!
Okay, sorry about that.
And oh wait, there's more. In the same article where Dan Harmon talks about Rick and Morty being like two sides of a brain, Dan, in speaking of Rick, is quoted saying, "He's a great metaphor for mental illness." And in the episode Pickle Rick, the psychiatrist has this to say about Rick.
Rick, the only connection between your unquestionable intelligence and the sickness destroying your family is that everyone in your family, you included, use intelligence to justify sickness. You seem to alternate between viewing your own mind as an unstoppable force and as an inescapable curse. And I think it's because the only truly unapproachable concept for you is that it's your mind within your control.
Rick is sick because he wants to be the master of his own universe at all costs. But this sickness isn't just Rick's to bear, it also affects the family. And most of all, Morty. Remember, Rick wants to control Morty.
Will you listen to me, Morty? Shut up and listen to me!
And in doing so, influences Morty with his way of thinking, making him question his own moral and ethical principles, which could be a good thing, but is most likely a bad thing.
Who's stupid now, bitch?
Bicameralism can be thought of as a type of mental disorder, and, in our modern sense of normal psychology, it most certainly is. For example, in the theory, schizophrenia is thought to be a remnant of the bicameral mind. So Rick can be seen as a mental illness that is influencing and piloting Morty, like one side of the brain controlling the other, and it's this sickness that is the primary negative force in Morty's life, causing disillusionment, confusion, irritability, disassociation from reality, malaise, and anxiety.
Why do you keep doing this to us?
I don't know, Morty. Maybe I hate myself. Maybe I think I deserve to die. I don't know.
Now, there may be something of a parallel to Rick and Morty in this whole bicameral mind theory, sure, but what does that have to do with anything?
What the hell is he talking about?
How does knowing this bit of information impact the way you watch the show? Well, in adding all the pieces mentioned here together, we can see that Morty is under the oppression of Rick, in the same way that people in the bicameral era were under the oppression of their own minds. What broke the cycle was an advancement in the way people thought and understood reality via metaphorical language. It was an increase and evolution in intelligence then that was our way out of the whole hearing voices business. So, from this theory, a prediction can be made about where the series is going. Morty will have to somehow separate away from Rick for good. We've seen that Morty has been growing smarter in Season 3, and Morty's increase in intelligence has already made him able to keep up with Rick in some instances, sure. But take a look at evil Morty. Not only is he as smart or even smarter than Rick, but he's also actively killing off Ricks. This might be the outcome of a cocky Morty, as indicated by Rick in the episode Close Encounters of the Rick Kind.
Just don't get too big for your loafers, Buster Brown. A cocky Morty can lead to some big problems. Can be a real bad thing for everybody.
Oh yeah, how's that?
I'll explain when you're older.
So, the Rick we watch, C-137, is keeping his Morty in check in order to maintain his dominance over him, even going so far as to alter Morty's memory.
Oh, you like that, huh? I bet that really blows your mind.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of great.
You want me to erase it?
What? You can do that?
Why? Because a cocky Morty can become a hyper-intelligent Morty that not only doesn't need a Rick anymore, but resents their Rick's domination so much that they want to get rid of him permanently, just like the ancient humans got rid of their dominating other half. There you have it, the theory of the bicameral mind and Rick and Morty. Whatever the creative process is like in the writer's room, I'm sure there's a lot of right-brain dominant people arguing with left-brain dominant people. Hopefully no insane people arguing with sane people though, but in looking at the show, that might not be too far off. Take it easy.